Hello, I'm Bunny, and today I'm going to be reading part 2 of T.S. Stapleton, The Treasure Seekers. Destination, Cambridge. A few hours later, the T.S. sisters were on a train and then a bus to Cambridge. The bus stopped very close to their destination, Girton College. "Wow!" Paulina exclaimed as she admired the red brick building in front of them. "It's amazing to think that Aurora studied right here almost a century ago." "Let's head inside," Violet said. "I called and made an appointment with the dean." "Welcome," the dean greeted them warmly. The Tia sisters explained that they wanted to research a student who had attended the school years ago, and he proved to be very helpful and very chatty. Cambridge, England. The city of Cambridge is located in England, about 60 miles from London. The famous University of Cambridge is one of the oldest universities, and it attracts visitors and students from all over the world. Many famous people have studied there, including mathematician Isaac Newton, naturalist Charles Darwin, and primatologist Dian Fossey. The dean was very interested in giving the Tia sisters a tour of the college, from the classrooms to the dorm rooms, telling them the history of each place in great detail. Girton College was founded in 1869 and was originally an all-mouselet school, the dean explained. The typical red brick architecture is thanks to. The friends exchanged worried glances as the dean chattered on and on. "He's just like Headmaster de Mouses," Pam whispered to Violet. "When he starts squeaking, he never stops." Meanwhile, the dean hadn't heard a thing. He continued, "And now we'll enter the great room, which, as you can see, is a perfect example of Victorian architecture." When the 5 mice stepped into the room, they were squeakless. The shiny wood walls and tall arched windows made it seem like they had stepped back in time. "Wow!" 𝐒𝐿 exclaimed. "It's so beautiful." "Today, this room is reserved for events and banquets," the dean continued. Violet stifled a yawn as she tried to figure out a way to politely interrupt the dean. Finally, he stopped for a moment to catch his breath. 𝐒𝐿 took advantage of the opportunity and quickly jumped in. "Thank you so much for your very interesting explanations," she gasped. "But we really do need to begin our research. Is it possible for us to consult your oldest archives?" "Oh, yes, of course," the dean replied. "You're looking for information on a student who graduated about 100 years ago, correct? You want to try the Central Archive, but what?" 𝐒𝐿 asked anxiously. "I'm afraid it's closed," the dean replied. The friends looked at one another in dismay. Had they come all this way for nothing? Before they could respond, the dean continued, "But you can come back tomorrow when it reopens. I have a meeting first thing in the morning, but my assistant will be able to let you into the archive and show you around until I can get there." The 5 mice breathed sighs of relief. Then they quickly thanked him for his help and said goodbye before he had a chance to begin squeaking again. The Tia sisters headed straight to the bed and breakfast where they were staying. They were exhausted from the long day of travel, and they couldn't wait to put their paws up and relax. A search through the past. "Rise and shine, Pam," 𝐒𝐿 squeaked to her friend the next morning. Pam was still snuggled under the covers in a deep sleep. "Huh?" she asked groggily as she sat up in bed. "Is it morning already?" "Yes, and we need to get back to Girton College," Colette replied. Hearing those words, Pam pressed the pillow to her ears. Oh no, she groaned. I don't think I can listen to another one of the dean's long-winded lessons. Her friends laughed. Well, if we get there early enough, he'll still be in his meeting, and we can begin exploring the archive on our own, remember? Violet said. You're right, Pam said decisively. She got out of bed and dressed quickly. Let's go then, but let's grab breakfast first. I'm so hungry. After a delicious breakfast of muffins and scones, the Mouses found themselves in Girton College once more. They stood in front of a door that read Central Archive, but unfortunately the door was locked and the dean's assistant was nowhere to be found. Now what do we do? Pam asked. Violet sighed. I guess we'll have to come back later, she squeaked. Just as the two sisters turned to leave, two blonde ratlets appeared at the end of the hallway. Hello, the first one exclaimed. You five are from Mouseford Academy, right? I'm Philip, and this is my brother, James. Nice to meet you, Colette greeted them. But how do you know who we are? James was the one who shyly explained. The dean spoke to us about you, and he asked us to come let you into the archive. But the dean told us we would meeting his assistant, Violet replied. Trouble is, she's on vacation, Philip smiled. The dean is a little absent-minded, but don't worry, he realized his mistake last night and asked us to help you. Thanks, that's really kind, Nikki said. It's not a problem, James responded. Sometimes we help organize things in the archive so we can help you find the information you need. A moment later, the Mousets were in a room full of photographs, computers, and leather-bound books. What are you looking for exactly? Philip asked. We're researching a student named Aurora Beatrix Lane, Paulina explained. She graduated about 100 years ago. Okay, then we'll need to consult the historic archive and do some cross-referencing, Philip replied. Oh, is that complicated? Colette asked, concerned. A little bit, Philip admitted, but historic research is our specialty. Modestly speaking, no one can top us. James turned a bit red. Philip, don't brag, he scolded in a teasing tone. Then he turned to the two sisters. We'll do our best to help. The brothers sat down in front of two computers and began to type eagerly as the two sisters watched, impressed. They searched through pages and pages of results, and in less than 15 minutes, Philip cheered. Found it, he exclaimed. Here's the announcements that went out when she received her degree, along with a photograph. The two sisters peered at the screen. There they saw a young Aurora smiling proudly while standing next to a tall, skinny mouse with a serious air. I think that must be Professor von 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐿, Nikki exclaimed. She easily recognized the famous archaeologist who had been Aurora's teacher. Look, Pauline exclaimed, pointing to the image. Aurora is holding a book. It's a journal, exclaimed Colette. See the cover? There's no title, but there are 3 letters, A, B, and L, which stand for Aurora Beatrix Lane, Nikki concluded. As the two sisters stared at the photograph, James cleared his throat to get their attention. I've actually seen these initials here at Girton, he said. All 5 friends turned to him at once. You have? Violet asked in disbelief. Please tell us more. The perfect hiding place. You've seen those letters somewhere else? Here? Where? Nikki asked. It was in the ancient library. Right, Phil? James asked his brother. Philip nodded and then turned to the two sisters. Come with us, he said. Then he turned round and began walking quickly, followed by his brother. The two sisters were a bit surprised, but they followed behind them. Don't you want to tell us more? Colette squeaked between breaths. She was having trouble keeping up with the brothers who were scampering eagerly down the college's long corridors. Nah, just wait until we get there, Philip replied. It's better if we just show you. Finally, they entered an old room whose walls were partly lined with shelves full of bound volumes. Large windows let in the sun, which lit up the wood floor, the rich geometrically patterned carpets, and the beautiful stone fireplace. Philip and James headed straight for the fireplace of all things. This is the Stanley Library, James explained in a quiet voice. This room and collection dates back to the end of the 1800s. Please, Pam cried, interrupting him. We've got enough history lessons yesterday from the dean. James was squeakless for a moment, then laughed. You're right, but you don't want to hear this. You see, we found the initials ABL in the fireplace. What? Nicky exclaimed in disbelief. You found them in the fireplace? That's right, Philip replied as he ducked his head under the fireplace hood. A few months ago, it was our friend Bradley's birthday. He always plays pranks on us, so we decided that for once we would play one on him. He paused for a moment. Now, where was it? Philip mumbled to himself, feeling around inside the fireplace. We got him a birthday gift, James continued as Philip searched. But instead of giving it to him directly, we organized a treasure hunt throughout the college. The idea was for him to follow one clue to the next, eventually finding the gift in a secret hiding spot. You mean in this fireplace? Cole asked in surprise. Exactly, James explained, and that's where we discovered the initials. Here they are, Phil exclaimed suddenly. Come take a look. The mouse had knelt down into the fireplace, and Nicky slipped in so she could see the place Philip was pointing to. It's true, she cried. I see it. Wow, Colette murmured dreamily. That means Aurora was right here in this fireplace a century ago, carving her initials in the stone. Yes, but why put her initials inside a fireplace? Violet asked, puzzled. It doesn't make sense unless they're marking something else, Nicky said suddenly. She began to feel around inside the fireplace near the area with the writing. Here, there's a spot where the stone is uneven. It's just next to the stone with Aurora's initials. Maybe I need to push or pull. Suddenly, they all heard a little click that echoed through the room. The Tia sisters held their breath as Nicky reached up to investigate. She could feel that a small slab of stone had moved, revealing a tiny opening in the interior wall of the fireplace. She reached her paw in the opening and pulled something out. What is it? Pam asked eagerly. It's Aurora's journal, Colette squeaked, grinning from ear to ear. Nicky gently removed the small worn notebook. It had been well preserved inside a metal box, and the friends could clearly read the letters ABL on the cover. Nicky delicately held the journal in her paws as if she were handling a great treasure. Her friend's eyes sparkled with happiness. I can't believe it, Pam squeaked, turning to Philip and James. We really found it, and it's all thanks to you two. No, you five did everything, James replied. Don't be modest, Pam continued. Without your help, we would never have looked in this fireplace. We're glad to help, Philip said. But now I'm wondering who this Aurora is and what connection she has to you. Paulina smiled. You're right, she said. We really should explain everything. Aurora was a student at this college, as we told you, Violet began. She's also the ancestor of a friend of ours, and she's the key to solving a problem our friend is having. Someone took something very important from her. This journal could contain important clues on how to get it back. Philip and James nodded with understanding. Then the best thing for you to do now is to go back to your bed and breakfast so you can read it in private among yourselves, James said. Nikki sighed, clutching the journal to her chest. You're absolutely right, she said. Let's head back and get to work. We have to figure out what the next step is before those other nasty rodents can do. Those other nasty rodents do. She couldn't say for sure, but something told her they would find really important information in those pages. She couldn't wait to read it. Hopefully, it would give the mouselets everything they needed to track down the tapestry. A short while later, the 5 friends were gathered together in their room at the bed and breakfast. They sat around Nikki, who prepared herself to read the first pages of the journal aloud. 16th of May. Dear Diary, I have decided to start writing here today on my first day as a graduate. The years I spent at Girton College were truly wonderful. I grew up, I made friendships with fantastic mice, and most of all, I dedicated myself to archaeology. It is truly my passion, and I will never give it up. This world of ours is full of riches from the past, just waiting to be brought to light. And I am ready to do that. The graduation ceremony was yesterday. I was chosen to give a farewell speech. My classmates were so excited, but I felt strangely calm. The future sparkles before us, and we just have to give our all to make sure it continues to shine. While I was on the stage, I looked out at all the relatives who had gathered there for us. My family was there, including my mom and all 6 of my sisters. For a moment, I really felt my dad's absence, but even though he is no longer with us, I always carry him in my heart, and I feel like he has never abandoned me. His voice guides me where I have too many questions inside me, and his hand is still holding mine when things are hard, just like when I was young. My sister is so sweet. She drew me like this. From the stage, I looked at my mom, at Robert and my sisters. Hannah, Linda, and Susan are already young women, and even Carla is growing up. Petra and Diana, on the other hand, are still little kids. Now I feel like I am the one who must protect and take care of them. After the ceremony, Professor von Clausewitz complimented me on my accomplishments and asked if I would be his assistant on his next few excavations. I am so excited at the thought. A short while later, I was moved once more when Robert pulled me aside and hugged me, telling me how proud he is of me. This warmed my heart and made the moment even more special. I am sure that I will always remember this day. There's so much emotion in her writing, Colette remarked. I feel as though she was a close friend after hearing just a few pages. Yes, and she was so ambitious, Paulina chimed in. She has so many dreams. Leah and Nikki leafed through the next few pages and summarized them for her friends. Here she records her first experiences of excavating with Professor von Clausewitz, Nikki explained, and she writes about little Petra's birthday. There's even a photo. The Tia sisters huddled around the journal. She really was like us, Violet remarked, and after learning about her life is fascinating. But we can't forget the reason we're doing this. We're doing all of this. Yes, of course, Colette agreed. We need to help Beatrice. V is right. We should look in the journal for some reference to the tapestry or to the alabaster garden. I think I found something, Paulina exclaimed. She had taken the journal from Nikki and was leafing through its pages. 23rd of July. Dear Diary, Professor 𝐓𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 is unusually nervous these days and is acting very strange. I have already written about how he is very protective of his trunks, remember? Well, last night, when I got up to go to the bathroom, I saw that the door to the professor's room was a little bit open. He was standing over an open trunk, contemplating something that looked like a little urn. Inside, it looked like there was a little urn. Strange, right? I immediately thought that perhaps he had commissioned some copies of the most beautiful relics he had discovered so that he can bring them with him and study them carefully. But why keep them hidden? It seems like an odd thing to do. For a moment, I found myself wondering if he had stolen them, but I would never believe it. The professor had too much integrity to do such a thing. But then there was another unusual incident today that I should write about. The day began in the usual way. The professor and the rest of the archaeological team had a long and difficult journey to reach a small village at the top of a hill. There was a half-ruined castle in an ancient village. The most important building was an old castle that was half in ruins, and according to the professor, was built on top of the ruins of another ancient structure. We had already been working for a few hours, and I found myself in a room in the castle, happily observing the stucco on the walls. Suddenly, while I was delicately touching one of the walls, I realized that one of the stones moved a little. Curious, I tried to push it, and immediately an underlying panel unlocked. I soon realized it wasn't a simple wall. Rather, it was a hidden door. Behind the door was a tiny secret room that was covered entirely in mosaic tiles. In the center of the room, there was a lectern, which is a tall stand to hold up books or notes. I had never seen anything like it. There was a hidden door in the wall, and behind the door was a secret room. In the wing of the building where I was working, it was just me and Professor 𝐓𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿. So I called him, and he came at once. As soon as he saw the secret room, his eyes began to sparkle. "Aurora, you found it," he said, darting inside. There was a lectern in the middle of the room. The room was very small, but I followed him to find out what he was talking about. On the lectern, there was a tightly bound ancient volume. I lifted it carefully, then I began to leaf through the pages, which told of legends and precious treasures. But as I was trying to decipher the laden title that sparkled in gold on the cover, the professor brusquely grabbed it from my paws. The ancient book that 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 wanted to keep for her husband. "I'm taking this," he said seriously. I was stunned. The professor had always been kind toward me. Why was he suddenly acting so rudely? And why did he want the book so badly? 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 had never spoken to us about books. When he spoke of the possible relics we would just uncover at the excavation site. His strange behavior really struck me. Then, after a few moments, he returned to his normal self and began explaining that the book was an ancient volume that could be easily damaged and that it was better if he took it into his care immediately. When I proposed that I should officially register the discovery of the room and of the book, he said he preferred to do it himself. It's all very strange, dear diary. The professor had always been careful to make us follow the proper procedure for all our findings. Instead, this time he was the one behaving improperly, and he didn't even let me look at the book again. My father always reminded me that when your instinct tells you something, you should listen. But what exactly is in this case? Should I find a way to get more information? Pam shook her head. I don't understand what this has to do with the stolen tapestry, she said. Yeah, how does an old book relate to Beatrice and her problems? Nikki asked, confused. It may be nothing, Pauline responded, thoughtful, but you heard what Aurora wrote, right? She said the book spoke of legends and treasures. Violet nodded. Maybe we're on the right track, she said. Let's try to read a bit more and see if we can find out.